So we'll start with our Mangachar. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Cheva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Udhiraye Ashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavatir Naishtriki Om Agyantimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukham karoti vachanam pangam langhate girim yatprapatamam vande Sri Guru Dina Taranam Paramanandam Madhavam. Hare Krishna, thank you so much for joining. So we'll resume our discussion, 6th canto, 16th chapter, verse 30. So this section is talking about Chitraketu obtaining the darshan of Lord Sankarshan. So by chanting the mantra that Narad Muni gave him, in stages, he becomes free of his lamentation, free of his material conception, becomes elevated to the position of the leader of the Vidyadharas. And Vishwanath Chakravarti says, these are all the secondary lakshans of chanting. Then the primary is revealed at the end, which is the person getting darshan of Lord Sankarshan. Right. So, resuming from verse 30th. Mrinal Gauram Shitivashasham Spurat Kirit Keyur Katitra Kanan Kanam Prasanna Bhaktraruna Lochanam Vratam Tadarsha Siddheshwar Mandale Prabhum. Upon reaching the shelter of Lord Shesh, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Chitraketu saw that he was as white as the white fibers of a lotus flower. He was dressed in bluish garments and adorned with a brilliantly glittering helmet, armlets, belts, and bangles. His face was smiling, and his eyes were reddish. He was surrounded by such exalted, liberated persons as Sanat Kumar. So there are two personalities that are very, very similar. One is Ananta Shesh, and the other is Lord Shesha. So Lord Shesha is Vishnu Tattva. So is non-different from the Lord. He is expansion of Lord Sankarshan or Lord Sankarshan. Ananta Shesh, who is the bed of Lord Vishnu. So let me see if I get it correctly. One of them is holding the universe on his hoods, and the other is the bed of Lord Vishnu. So the one that is the bed of Lord Vishnu is Ananta Shesh. And the one that is holding the universe is Lord Shesha. So, but I'll check on this and confirm to you. So here it's mentioned that Chitraketu reached the abode of Lord Shesha. Taddarshan dhvasta samasta kilbisha swastha malanta karno bayamuni pravratta bhaktaya pranaya shulochana praharshat romananda dipurusham. As soon as Maharaj Chitraketu saw the Supreme Lord, he was cleansed of all material contamination and situated in his own original Krishna consciousness, being completely purified. He became silent and grave, and because of love for the Lord, tears fell from his eyes, and his hair stood on end. With great devotion and love, he offered respectful obeisances unto the original personality of Godhead. So, couple of tattvas or details that one can derive from this. One is, it is said that Maharaj Chitraketu, on seeing the Lord, was purified of his sins, like samasta kilvisha dhasta. So the question is, how was Chitraketu able to even see the Lord if he had sins? Right? Because that is the final goal. So one would assume that he's been purified of all sins before he can see the Lord. So there are few ways to understand this. In the Madhurya Kadamni, it is explained that anarthas remain all the way till the stage of prema bhakti. Right? And now anartha nivritti is a stage when they are predominantly destroyed. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives the example of anartha nivritti being a city being burnt. So the city no longer exists, but you can see the burnt buildings, the roads. You can see the outline of the wall around the city. So that is anartha nivritti, right? And then as you go further, then he gives examples of considering that like a cloth is being torn to smaller pieces. So the pieces are there, but they are much more minute. So in this way, all the way to prema bhakti, there are anarthas, though in reduced stages. At another place, it is said that anarthas have three causes. They are coming from past sinful activities, past pious activities, and from bhakti. So the first anarthas that are destroyed are those that are coming from sinful activities. Right? So they are destroyed at the stage of anartha nivritti. Then anarthas that are coming from pious activities are destroyed later on to the stages leading to bhava. And then at the stage of prema, the anarthas that remain are those that come from bhakti. So these are bhakti aparadhas that are done. So either nam aparadh or seva aparadh or Vaishnava aparadh. So traces of them stay there. So it's further mentioned that only when the person gets the personal audience of the Lord do the anarthas get completely eradicated. So that is why here it is mentioned that Maharaj Chitraketu was cleansed of material contamination, which means that whatever the traces of offenses that he had still with him. And at this stage, there were mostly offenses that were coming because of bhakti. They were eradicated. So Srila Prabhupada translates dhvasta samasta kilbisha as having destroyed all sins, right? And this is the explanation that supports it. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur interprets it a little differently. And he says, Dhvasta Samasta Kilbisha is destroyed all grief, which is grief of separation from the Lord. So Srila Prabhupada says that the word Tad Darshan Dhvasta Samasta Kilbisha is very important. If one regularly sees the personality of Godhead in the temple, one will gradually will be disinfected from all material desires. Right? So Srila Prabhupada extends this notion that by taking, when one sees the Lord, then the traces of, even the minute traces of anarthas are eradicated. So Srila Prabhupada says that the same effect can be obtained by seeing the deity and the temple. Verse 32. Sa uttam shloka padabja vistaram prema shuleshe upameyan muhu premo paruddha khila varna nirgamo neva shakattam parasam miditam chiram. With tears of love and affection, Chitraketu repeatedly moistened the resting place of the Supreme Lord's lotus feet. Because his voice was choked in ecstasy for a considerable time, he was unable to utter any of the letters of the alphabet to offer the Lord suitable prayers. So Srila Prabhupada writes a powerful purport in this, and he says that the real purpose of everything that exists is to somehow or the else serve the Supreme Lord. And so he says that all the letters of the alphabets, all the words that are constructed by the letters are only meant for offering praise to the Lord. Chitraketu had the opportunity to offer praise to the Lord by composing nice verses from the letters of the alphabet, but because of his ecstasy, he could not join those letters. So in Bhagavad Gita 5:29, Krishna says, Yat Karoshi, that whatever you do it as an offering for the Lord. Right? So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he told the residents of Pulin Gram to get the ropes for pulling the cart, right? So even though they were not pulling the cart, just by doing this service to help somebody else, they were performing devotional service. Right? So in this context, Prabhupada writes that devotees should be ready to engage all material efforts in the service of the Lord. This is known as Karma Mishra Bhakti or Karma Yoga. Verse 33, Tatha samadhayo mano manishaya baba saetad pratilabdavagaso niyamya sarvendriya bhayavartanam jagat gurum shatvat shasta vigraham. Thereafter, by controlling his mind with his intelligence, and thus restricting his senses from external engagements, he recovered suitable words with which to express his feelings. Thus he began offering praise to the Lord, who is the personification of the Holy Scriptures, the Shatpat Samhitas like Brahma Samhita and Narad Pancharatra, and who is the spiritual master of all. He offered his prayers as follows. So one thing interesting that you'll see over here is the order in which Chitraketu is controlling, right? So he first controlled his intelligence. With the intelligence, he controlled his mind. With the mind, he controlled the senses, right? And then by controlling the senses, he now was able to render the prayers. Now, this sequence is opposite to the sequence for practicing devotees, where one is first recommended to control the senses. And then by the control of the senses, one develops control of the mind. And by controlling the mind, one begins to control the intelligence. Right? And the reason is that practicing devotees are going from a material to a spiritual conception. So the thing that is most active for them is their senses engaging with the material sense objects. So they gradually disengage. Chitraketu was in a stage of spiritual ecstasy. His problem was that his senses were completely spiritualized, as was the mind and intelligence. So then he first controls his intelligence. Through the intelligence, the mind. So this is not to say that he made the material, but he for the purpose of glorifying the Lord, he detached them from the Lord, because he was so absorbed in appreciating the Lord that he was not able to do the service that he desired, which was to glorify the Lord. So for that purpose, he disengaged from the Lord. Right? And really speaking, he regained this by the mercy of the Lord. So by the mercy of the Lord, Chitraketu regained his speech. Right? And Srila Prabhupada mentions the holy scriptures as Shatvat Samhitas. So Shatvat Samhitas are those that are in the mode of goodness. So they are the Vaishnava Shastras. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada expands on this to emphasize the importance of only reading bona fide Shastras. Right? So the word Shatvat Samhitas actually does not appear in the verse. Right? The word that appears in the Sanskrit is simply Shatvat Shastra. Right? And then Srila Prabhupada expands on this, saying Shatvat Shastra like Brahma Samhita and Narad Pancha Ratra. So Prabhupada in the purport, he quotes the verse from Padma Purana, which is actually referred by Sanatana Goswami, in which Sanatana Goswami says that one should not sing songs that are not sung by authorized devotees. It says, Avaishnav Mukhodgirnam Putam Hari Kathamritam Shavanam Nevya Kartavyam Sarpochashtam Yathapaya. So the words or songs of a person not fixed in Vaishnav behavior, right? A Vaishnav Mukhodrinam. So coming from the mouth of a person who is a Vaishnav, right? Not strictly following the rules and regulations and chanting the Hare Krishna mantra should not be accepted by pure devotees. Right? Whereas, on the other hand, the Shatvat Shastra Vigraha. So the Shastras that are Shatvat, they are like the body of the Lord. They are like the Satchitanand body of the Lord, and they are never under the influence of Maya. Right? So the Vaishnavas and those who are aspiring to become Vaishnavas follow this very strictly. So there are songs that are composed by Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Narottam Das Thakur, and they are accepted because they meet this criteria. that the author of these songs, they were themselves following the path of bhakti. They were manifesting the symptoms of bhakti. So it means that they were accepted by the Lord and other Vaishnavas as being bona fide. So sometimes people complain that these songs are written in Bengali, or like right now there's this Krishna West movement going on, in which they're complaining that why not in English? You can also write songs in Western, whichever country, because people can relate to it. But it's not just the mechanical composition of the glorification. And it's more about the realization of the person who composes that. Because even now, there are people who can compose in Sanskrit and Hindi also. Right? They can write songs and they can write verses. But if they're a Vaishnav, then they're like sarpochastham, right? So they're like milk that has been tasted by the snake. Now, maybe devotees can do, but the recommendation is that pure devotees, or at least exalted devotees, they should their words should be followed. Once Prabhupada was in the Paris temple, and there was kirtan that was going on, and he was not in the temple room, but he was in another floor, and ecstatic kirtan. People were happy that Prabhupada was there, and the lead kirtaner, he was singing something that was melodious but not bona fide, something like Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Jai Gora, Jai Ghansham, something like that. It was melodious, and people were like following him. And Srila Prabhupada heard it and he said, "Stop this kirtan right away." Right? And then he said that I have not even left, and these people are already contaminated. So sometimes people say Lord's name is Lord's name. What's the problem? Bhakti Vinod Thakur, this whole movement that he went after, which was, I forget what they were, but they used to sing, they had some kind of mantra, and some, I forget, they had some mantra which was not bona fide, and it was very popular at the time. And Bhakti Vinod Thakur was very heavy on them, saying that it's not a bona fide mantra. It doesn't matter if it's the names of the Lord. It's not a bona fide mantra. Sometimes we see TV serials, and we see that in the TV serials, Karna is being glorified. Veerdani Karan, and most munificent, charitable. Or sometimes Ravan is presented as an exalted personality, that he was a great devotee of Lord Shiva, and a great Pandit, very knowledgeable. And then we see that, how do we accept this? So how do we accept it? Is by seeing what do the Shatvat Samitas say. So based on the criteria that are present in the Shatvat Samitas. What's the criteria of Bhakti Anibilashita Shunyam Jnanakaram Vidya Anavrutam? So were they following the principles of Bhakti? So Karna was given charity. Why? Because he understood the law of Kankand, that by giving in charity, he would get the benefits of giving in charity. So he was giving it for a very, very selfish reason. And Ravan, he was a powerful personality, but not an exalted personality. Right? He was never a pure devotee of Lord Shiva. He composed the Tandav Stotra mostly for his own benefit, because Lord Shiva had crushed his hands under the mountain, and he was advised by his followers that Lord Shiva is Ashutosh. So for 100 years he sang the Tandav Stotra, essentially with this desire that my hands be freed. And when Lord Shiva did free his hand, then what did Ravan do? The first thing he did was he said that, can you give me your Pashupati Astra? Right? So his mentality was take, take, take. Right? So not by Shatvat Samhita's criteria are these devotees, regardless of how they are glorified in by self-proclaimed people or by entertainment, etc. Right? So devotees, they stay on the straight and narrow. Right? They apply the basic principles and then they follow up. Okay, verse 34. चित्रकेतुर्वाचा अजीत जीत सममतभिः साधुभिर्भवाञ्चिताम्बिर्भवतां विजितास्तेऽपि च भजताम् आकामातनं यत्मत् करुणः. Chitraketu said, O unconquerable Lord, although you cannot be conquered by anyone, you are certainly conquered by devotees who have control of the mind and senses. They can keep you under their control because you are causelessly merciful to devotees who desire no material profit from you. Indeed, you give yourself to them, and because of this, you also have full control over your devotees. So from this verse 34, 15 verses are the prayers of Chitraketu. Right? So this is the third section of the chapter. The first section was the dead son of Chitraketu speaking. The second section was the instructions by Narad Muni and the mantra given. In this section are the prayers of Chitraketu to Lord Sankarshan. And in the final section of the chapter will be instructions by Lord Sankarshan to Chitraketu. So this verse is poetic, right? There is this, you see, there is the recurrence of the concept of conquer. So, O unconquerable Lord, so cannot be conquered by anyone, but you are conquered by your devotees. Who are the devotees? Those who have conquered their own minds and senses. And while these devotees have conquered you, you also have conquered. Right? So there is this interplay of conquering going on. That the devotees conquer their minds and senses and desires, and because of that they conquer the Lord, who is unconquerable, but allows himself to be conquered. And while the devotees conquer the Lord also conquers the devotees. And so Sammatabi is that they have conquered their mind. They have conquered lust, which is the nature of the mind, and then they have conquered desires, Jita Mabi. So which means that by conquering their mind, senses, and desires, they conquer the Lord. Right? Now, does that mean that if one controls the mind, senses, and desires, the person gets the Lord under the control? Because even the yogis conquer their mind, senses, and desires. Right? But what the devotees do is that after they conquer all this, they offer it to the Lord. Right? So that's why it is said the devotees desire no material profit from you. So the only reason that they're conquering all this, Akam Atmanam, so all these things they're conquering only for the purpose of offering to the Lord. And then how does the Lord reciprocate? That he allows himself to be conquered by the devotees. So what does that practically mean? It means that he spiritualizes all their senses. So for such devotees, the Lord appears in the form of the deity for their eyes and touch. So when they see the deity, they see the Lord. The Lord appears in the sound vibration. So when they hear the names, so we may hear Krishna and Radha, right? But when such devotees hear Krishna and Radha, they are actually coming in direct contact of the Lord. When they smell the incense or the perfume offered to the Lord, they actually smell the Lord. So when it says that the Lord allows himself to be conquered by such devotees, what it means is that the Lord spiritualizes all their senses, which means that the Lord is now subservient to their senses. By their sense of sight and touch and smell and taste, they capture the Lord. When they eat prasadam, they consider it to be they consider the Lord's saliva to be present over there. Right? So the Lord is submitting himself to the senses. But then at the same time, the Lord is also conquering the devotees. Right? And Vishnu Chakravarti says that the cause of conquering these devotees is that they have conquered him. So one may say that even for the non-devotees, the Lord is in control. The Lord has conquered them also. But there is a difference. When the Lord conquers his devotees, then he uses all their senses for his own purposes. So when he had to speak the Bhagavad Gita, then he bewildered Arjuna. He did not bewilder Duryodhana, because Duryodhana was in control of his own senses. Now, Krishna in a way is controlling those senses, but through the modes of material nature, indirectly. But for his devotees, he controls them directly. He put Arjuna into bewilderment. He put Parikshit Maharaj into bewilderment. Later on, we'll see that he actually puts Chitraketu into bewilderment. Now, he's not doing this out of malice. He's not doing this in order to teach them a lesson. Maybe. I think the lesson part, at least in Chitraketu, was true. Maybe in Arjuna's case also. But essentially, the Lord is using their senses as if they belong to him. Right? Just like it is said that the wife, she exercises full dominion on her husband's property. Right? So anybody else will maintain this distinction. The friend might come, the brother might come, even the children. They will make this distinction. Oh, this is yours. Can I use this? Or this is your space, but not for the wife. Like she will with full authority take over everything that the husband has, and vice versa also. Right? So because that sense of ownership from love is there. So in the same way, there is a sweet competition between the Lord and the devotees. The Lord is conquering the devotees by his love. The devotees are conquering the Lord by their service. And they're both competing with each other. And Prabhupada in the purport says that samamati, without interruption, is the quality of a devotee that has now conquered the Lord. So pure devotees are described as samamati, which means they never deviate from devotional service under any circumstances, whether it is happiness or distress. Which is why Srimad Bhagavatam says that devotional service is ahituki apratiyata, yatma suprasiddhiti. So Srila Prabhupada quotes two important verses for bhakti. One is from the Bhagavatam. Samay Pumsha Paro Dharmo Yato Bhakti Rathok Sajay Aituki Pratiyata Yatma Suprasiddhati. And the second from Nectar of Devotion, 1111, Anibilashita Shunyam, Jnana Karmadi, Anavirtam. Right? So one talks about how the devotional service is unmotivated and uninterrupted. And the second one talks about how it is uncontaminated. So once Giriraj Maharaj speaks to Chaitanya, to Srila Prabhupada, and he said that I have a tendency to be envious of other devotees, right? And Prabhupada responded saying that the reason for this envy is the competitive mentality, that the other devotee is doing a better service. But actually, when one begins to see that if the Lord is unlimited, then the opportunity to serve him is also unlimited. If one devotee is doing one service perfectly, then there are millions of other services that the devotee can give. In the material world, since everything is limited, the understanding is if one takes up something, then it is depleted by that amount. But not so in the spiritual world. Okay, on to verse 35. Tava vibhava khalau bhagavan jagat udaya sthiti laya dini vishwasrajaste mashamashasas tatramrasha sparadanti pradak abhimatya. My dear Lord, this cosmic manifestation and its creation, maintenance, and annihilation are all but your opulences. Since Lord Brahma and the other creators are nothing but small portions of a portion of you, their partial power to create does not make them God, Ishvara. Their consciousness of themselves as separate lords is therefore merely false prestige. It is not valid. So, previous verse talked about the sweet relationship between the Lord and his pure devotees, that of mutual conquest. Now, in 3 verses, Chitraketu will glorify the powers of the Lord. So, understanding this as a conversation, Chitraketu says, O Lord, creation and destruction are your greatness. So the Lord says, but we see Brahma and others create the universe. Chitraketu says, those creators are only portions of portions of you. And the Lord says, but devotees of Lord Brahma and Lord Shiv compete in establishing the lordship of their masters. Right? So those who are worshippers of Lord Shiv says Shiv is the personality of Godhead. Same thing for Brahma. So Chitraketu says that competition is useless because such devotees are identifying with a particular body thinking, I am Brahma, I am Shiva, I am the sun god. Right? So the fault is not of Brahma or Shiva or the sun god, but the fault is of the devotees who are worshipping Lord Brahma thinking I am Brahma, and then trying to say that Brahma is Lord, or they're worshipping Shiva and then saying I am Shiva, and then that Shiva is God. So Prabhupada says the actual creator, the original creator is the personality of Godhead. Only in the interim does someone create something with the intelligence applied by the Lord. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada gives 3 reasons why the Lord should get all the credit from the living entities. Right. So one, that when they create, Now here, they are the Visargas, right? The Visargapatis, beginning from Brahma to the Manus, to the Prajapatis, to even the Jivas like us, who are also procreating. So, or just creating buildings, building bridges. So first is the intelligence that is used to do this creation is supplied by the Lord. Second reason Prabhupada says is the ingredients are supplied by the Lord. And the third is that all this creation rests on the larger creation by the Lord. So imagine if there is no sarga. If the Lord withdraws everything, then what's one going to create with? Like, not only is the ingredients and the intelligence withdrawn, but even the framework has been withdrawn. Prabhupada also notes that how creations by those who do not accept this inevitably results in problems. And he says that, people are proud that they created the automobiles. But then after the creation of the automobiles, there's so much of pollution that's going on. So now people are, saying that the electric cars are solving all the problems. But already there are people talking about the problem of the disposal of the battery of the electric cars. Right? They're full of all kind of chemicals, and there is no safe way to dispose of them. The batteries cannot be recycled. They're made of nickel and cadmium and different kinds of these elements that are not biodegradable. Right. So every creation comes with its own problem. Back in the early 20th century, when the automobiles were being introduced, they were actually presented as a solution for environmental problem. Right. So what was the environmental problem at the time? That the primary mode of transportation was horse-drawn carriages. And because there were so many horses on the street, the horses were basically passing stool. And the stool, at times, when the roads that were busy, the horse stool would actually be as high as the knee. Right. In fact, in the DC area, especially the old part of DC, the houses that are built over there, they're actually built on stilts. So later on, they became basement, but the houses were actually elevated from the ground, and they were built on stilts. That means they had like poles. And the reason is because that there was so much of horse manure that when it would rain, then the rain would dissolve this manure and it would run into the houses. And then manure being manure, it would have a bad smell, it would attract all kinds of insects. So when the automobiles started coming, that was the biggest advertisement. No more horse manure to deal with, no more horses to deal with, clear environmentally friendly solution. Right, and now they're the cause of environmental pollution, the EVs are being there. And few years down the road, then the EV will be the cause of the problem and something else will come up. Okay, verse 36. Paramano paramahata svamadayantantara varati traya viduraha advanti cha sattvanam yadruvam tad evantralipi. You exist in the beginning, middle, and end of everything, from the most minute particle of the cosmic manifestation, the atom, to the gigantic universes and total material energy. Nonetheless, you are eternal, having no beginning, mid, end, or middle. You are perceived to exist in these three phases, and thus you are permanent. When the cosmic manifestation does not exist, you exist as the original potency. Right? So very similar to the concept presented in the Upanishad, in the Chaturshloki, Bhagavatam. So these words essentially, the different ways of explaining how the Lord is not material and the Lord is not dependent on matter, but matter is dependent on the Lord because he exists without the universe, he exists during the universe, he exists after the universe, which means that he's not dependent on the universe, but the universe is dependent on them. Like Vishnu Chakravarti gives the example of gold. Like the gold can be used to make many kind of jewels. The jewels can then be jewelry, and the jewelry can then be melted and made. Gold can be extracted again, or other jewelry can be made. So in all these changes, there is one thing that remains constant, and that is gold. That does not change. So he says that is the nature of the Lord. Srila Prabhupada gives a slightly more scientific example of how hydrogen and oxygen combine to make water. Right? So one might say that my chemist might get together hydrogen and oxygen and say that I'm manufacturing water. And Prabhupada said that person, you should answer the question, where are you getting the hydrogen and oxygen from? So essentially, the Lord is the creator. He is the real permanent form. He is the first cause, the most subtle, and he is the final effect. He exists in the beginning, the middle, and the end. But he is devoid of the beginning, middle, and end because he is eternal. Okay, verse 37. क्षित्याद्वीरेश किलावृतः सप्तपीर्दशा गुणतोरेरन्दकोश यत्र पतते अनुकल्पः सहान्तकोटि कोटिशतदनन्तः. Every universe is covered by 7 layers: earth, water, fire, air, sky, the total energy, and false ego, each 10 times greater than the previous one. There are innumerable universes besides this one, and although they are unlimitedly large, they move about like atoms in you. Therefore, you are called unlimited, Ananta. So we see the progression over here. That is verse 35. Chitraketu glorifies the Lord as present in all the effects. In verse 36, he glorified the Lord as being existing at all points of time. Now, he's glorifying the Lord as existing in all points of space. Right? So, this is why also the Lord is Ananta, because he's present in all the effects. He's present all the time, and he's present everywhere. Right? So whether in space, whether in time, or whether in changes, the Lord is present. Prabhupada makes 2 points to understand the unlimited nature of the Lord. First, he talks about the innumerable expansions of the Lord. And he says the word Kala refers to the plenary portion of a plenary portion. Right? And says from Krishna or Govinda comes Balram, from Balram comes Sankarshan, from Sankarshan comes Narayan, from Narayan comes the Mahasankarshan, from Mahasankarshan comes Mahavishnu, and the other 3 personalities of the Chatur Pure. Then from Mahavishnu comes Garbhodaksha Vishnu, from Garbhodaksha Vishnu comes Shirdaksha Vishnu, and Shirdaksha Vishnu as Paramatma controls every universe. This gives the idea of unlimited. The second point Prabhupada says is the unlimited expanse of the material creation. At first, he talked about the unlimited expansions of the Lord, all the way from Krishna, Swayam Bhagwan, one person. One person expands into 4 persons, Chaturpiva. They expand into the Purusharthas, and then they expand into the Paramatma, right? So, innumerable expansions. Then, the innumerable extent of the material creation. Prabhupada said that this verse talks about the coverings of the universe. Shaptabir Dasha Gunoter Andakosha. Right? So how the Mahapanchabhuta are the first five. The sixth is the Mahatattva, the total material, and the seventh is false ego. And each, so this we studied in the fifth canto, right? How each is 10 times larger, and each universe, despite the fact of its massive size, is just like a small bubble or a small atom emanating from the breath of Mahavishnu. Okay, so we'll do one more verse and then we'll pause for discussion. Verse 38. Vishyadrasho nara pashavo ya upasate vibhutirna param tvam tesham ashisha isha tadantu vinashyanti yatha rajkulam. O Lord, O Supreme, unintelligent persons who thirst for sense enjoyment and who worship various demigods are no better than animals in the human form of life. Because of their animalistic propensity, they fail to worship your lordship, and instead they worship the insignificant demigods, who are but small sparks of your glory. With the destruction of the entire universe, including the demigods, the benediction received from the demigods also vanish, just like the nobility when a king is no longer in power. So, having glorified the Lord in different ways, now Chitraketu in 2 verses is going to glorify the devotees. So, his first glorification of the devotees appears as a condemnation of the non-devotees. Right? So the glorification is indirect. So essentially he's saying that those who worship the demigods are foolish like animals. Narapashava. Because they do not realize that the benedictions of the demigods are temporary. And just like an animal is foolish, because it does not understand what is there for its benefit, these demigod worshippers are also animals. And Bhagavad Gita says, Kamaste hit jnana prapatyante anya devata. Right? So why do they worship the demigods? Because they have material desires. Now what about those who have material desires but do not want to worship the demigods? So they have no hope? Prabhupada says absolutely not. And then he quotes this verse from Bhagavatam, Akama sarva kamo vi moksha kamodarti tivrena bhakti yogena yadate purusham param. Whether you are akam, without material desire, sarva kam, full of material desires, moksha kam, or desiring liberation, tivrena bhakti yogena. Right. So Chitraketu is not condemning people of having material desires. He's condemning them of worshipping the demigods. Now, it so happens that those who have material desires worship the demigods. Or typically, those who have material desires worship the demigods. Right? But he's not condemning material desires. He's saying that they're foolish. They can go with these material desires to the Supreme Lord. And then they're intelligent. So, strictly speaking, the worship of the devas is part of dharma, right? Artha moksha kam and artha kama, artha moksha kam. What's the fourth one?
Akama sarva kama moksha kama udharati ebrena bhakti yogena yajate purusham param.
No, what are the 4 purusharths?
Dharmartha kama moksha.
Dharmartha kama, dharmartha kama moksha. So artha and kam are actually part of dharma, right? But the Srimad Bhagavatam, it operates at a higher level, right? It does not operate at the level of dharma, artha, kam, and moksha. So that is why what Mahabharata or what the Vedas may consider as dharmic, Srimad Bhagavatam considers it to be adharmic. So that is why context is very important. Srimad Bhagavatam is preaching to devotees, right? So that's why the context is important. That's why when conversations are happening, then one should be aware of context. One should not simply condemn people saying that this is what it is. They're following dharma in their own way. But if they're looking for a higher path, then yes, this is the path for dharma. So this verse, there is glorification of the devotees by condemning the non-devotees. Next verse is the direct glorification of the devotees, which we'll do next time. So I'll stop over here and see if there's any discussion.
Yeah, Prabhu. In the prior verses, we discussed about the role of Shesha, right?
The role of?
Shesha, Ananta Shesha.
Yeah.
Okay. Why is there any reason the Lord choose Ananta Shesha to reveal to Chitraketu? Like any significance for this form? Basically, is it for the like a service, support, or any other goal like devotion? What he wanted to show with the Ananta, because normally we don't see Ananta Shesha as a...
So like I said, the form of the Lord that becomes his bed, that is Vishnu Tattva. Right, so it's not just his bed, but his strippers, his Brahman fed, everything. So essentially the Lord's paraphernalia, that is Vishnu Tattva. Then the Shesh Nag is the eldest son of Kadru and Kashyap. He's a Jiva. I think your question is that why does he take the form of a snake, right? I think that's what your question is.
Yes.
It's a very good question, and there is an explanation to this. I remember hearing of it in a lecture, that there's a particular reason that he takes the form of a many-hooded snake. I'm going to try and see it. If I have it in my notes, I'll see. I can't think of it off the top of my head. Or if somebody knows here, then they can share.
Thank you, Prabhu. The second I have question. This is on, we also spoke about where Chitraketu was preventing to have ecstasy, right? Like his ecstasy was preventing for any of the service, like offering prayers. It's a practical question, like what we see in our temple and all. Few devotees, I don't know whether it is a really getting into a bhava kind of a feeling and not committing to any service or the or is that a obstacle if we see that way? Is that like how a devotee will be balancing an overwhelming ecstasy with and what and how to maintain his capacity to act in as a service?
I would agree with you. So without having to comment on whether what they're experiencing, it's their personalization. But we see that if devotees are exalted to that point where they're getting overwhelmed by the feelings for the Lord, they're also able to control the feelings to serve the Lord. Right? Now, whether by the Lord's mercy or whether by the force of the bhakti, it's the same thing. But we see that in Dhruv Maharaj, we see that in Chitraketu, right? So yes, there is initially they get stunned because of the presence of the Lord, but then both of them, they wanted to render devotional service by composing praise and glorifying the Lord. In case of Dhruv Maharaj, the Lord touched him by the conch. In case of Chitraketu, he was able to control it himself by the mercy of the Lord. So from a practical perspective, if we do see devotees are in that stage where they are being overwhelmed by their love for the Lord, then inevitably they will also be able to channel that love into practical service.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Very quick question as a follow-up, Prabhuji. Like you mentioned, like Sashanag being the elder son of Kadru, which is Jiva, and Anantasesh is Vishnu Tattva. So I'm little confused. What is the difference between Sashanag and Anantasesh, Prabhuji?
One of them is the bed of Lord Vishnu, Garbhodaksha Vishnu, and the other is the one that holds the universe, the Bhumandal on his hood.
Oh, okay.
Right, so there are two different personalities. One of them is in the bottom of the Garbhodaksha ocean,
Sure.
and we'll study it when we do the 5th canto. So there's a description of him. I just hope I don't have the terms switched between Sheshnag and Anantashesh there. But maybe I'm 70% sure that Anantashesh is the bed of Lord Vishnu, and Sheshnag is the son of Kadru, the eldest son of Kadru, and he's the one that performs severe austerities, and then as a benediction, Lord Brahma gives him this service of upholding the universe, and he's the one who actually initiates the process of destruction of the universe also.
Oh,
So when the time for the pralaya comes, then the first thing that happens is that fire begins to emanate from the mouth of Sheshnag, and then it manifests as weather disturbances, as heat and rain, and then finally the drying effect, and then the whole process of destruction happens there.
oh, thank you so much, Prabhuji. Class itself is very beautiful, and this is completely new for me. I was so far thinking that the bed of the Lord itself carries the Bhumandal, but now I realized that there are two personalities.
There are two personalities, and also one of the common picturization, even in ISKCON, is that it shows that there is Garbhodaksha Vishnu, there is Anantashesh, there is Lord Vishnu lying, there is Lakshmi Devi massaging his feet, and then from his navel there is the stem of the lotus flower, and there is Brahma sitting on there. But actually that is a transient situation, right? Because only when the universe is created, that happens. Because what does Brahma do after that? He takes the lotus flower and creates the planets out of it. So because the lotus flower is the material for the planets.
Oh,
So he takes the material of the lotus flower, because Brahma has nothing, right? He has no material himself. Everything is getting from the Lord.
okay.
Right? So he takes that and creates the universe, and then the Lord, he goes to the planet of Brahma. He goes to Brahma Lok actually, and resides there. So it's not that he's always floating on the ocean. That's just during the creation.
Oh, thank you so much, Prabhuji. This is very
So
hard.
this is just a teaser to the 5th canto. When we do the 5th canto, then we'll get a lot more. We get a frame by frame sequence of the creation of the universe there.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Yeah, just saying, comment on what you said, Prabhu. Some people confuse about the Mahavishnu from where everything starts, because the one with the lotus flower is a secondary one. It's not the first one. I think the spiritual world one, where Lakshmi is. Where Brahma is born, there's no Lakshmi there.
Okay, that I think we should probably verify that.
Yeah,
we should verify
that's what we
that.
have to check. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the other one that is lying in the universe, where bubble is coming out of each pore, And from this pore that every universe is there,
Yeah.
Even from the pore one, there is no Lakshmi there, as far as I understood.
So that emanation of the universe from the pores, that is poetic extrapolation. That's not factual. Because in the Brahma Samhita, it is said that only by his breathing the universes come in. Like he breathes out, universes are created, he breathes in. But this coming from the pores, it's a poetic extrapolation to show the size of Karunadaksha Vishnu. That he is so large that any of the universe with all its size will fit into the pore of his skin. It doesn't mean the universes are coming from his pores. There's only one way the universe comes, from his breathing and breathing in, breathing out. Because if they're coming from his pores, then they have no connection with his breathing then. And it negates all the verses by Lord Brahma where he says that by your breathing universe is created, by your breathing in, that is they're destroyed. There, right? So it's a poetic kind of a thing to indicate that the universe. But I think the point you're making is that in that form, Lakshmi Devi is generally not seen.
Yeah.
Right? She is by himself. And that's what I was saying we should verify.
I heard, Prabhuji, like Sri Mahavishnu, Ramadevi is internally situated. That is the reason. That's what I heard. Because Sri Mahavishnu's concert is Ramadevi, who is always stays internal. That's what I.
Possible. That's possibly a more because wherever the Lord is, his energy is there. She's serving him there. But like Ramkatha Prabhu is saying that maybe she is residing not by his lotus feet, but she's residing in his heart. Okay, nice discussion. So we'll stop here. वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितनां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंत कोटि वैष्णववृंद की जय। शील प्रभुपाद की जय। जय गौर प्रेमानंदे। हरे कृष्ण। Thank you so much.